All right, so bet Kingsley Cross at Kingslow Fitness once again. I went over a little bit on art and programming. Art and programming. Now I said I'm gonna get into some programming in that sense also. I gotta get into this programming. It's on classes. This is something it's not new to me, but it's like that's that puzzle piece right there. Put every all the pieces together in that sense and start having that sense of problem solving. Now I'm gonna state this also because I say school ain't shit too tough in that perspective. Cause I remember when I went to, let's no offense to CUNY, I went to CUNY, like how many CUNY's joints? New York City Tech before they changed the name of then there was BMCC. I think it was just the two, New York City Tech and BMCC, right? Yeah, those two. Then I went to DeVry after I graduated from BMCC. Now, from New York City Tech to BMCC, Borough Manhattan Community College, BMCC had the programming curriculum, but it was towards a certain level extent where it went like it was a associate's degree, an associate's degree in programming up towards a level. They went towards the object oriented programming then as well. I just didn't get that part. It was because somehow it was condensed in a sense where it's like there had to be more after the fact. And technically speaking, that more after the fact is pretty much going into corporations and continuing that more after the fact, or even going over it and over it and over it again through my own computer in that perspective. You know what I'm saying? But there was not time constraints, but there was various other things going on in my life where it's like, programming, programming, programming. And I didn't even think about it too tough. It's like at the time I thought that shit was boring as hell. Yeah, I mean, I'm like, I don't even, I couldn't see what they had. Like they had three characters that was behind me. I'm over listening, listening to them in that perspective. Characters behind me, like they were into it. I couldn't grasp it too tough because initially, again, as I stated in my other video, my last video, it was like I was into I was busy playing video game consoles, but through again, it's like a computer, but it wasn't a computer itself. So it's video game consoles versus the computer itself, where computer has like video games in there, but then you could do so much more in the computer. Now you see, I went from of back in the days when I was a kid, just like video games and not too much of the computer itself. But then again, when I went to college in that perspective, once again from New York City Tech to BMCC. Now I went from New York City Tech to BMCC. My major was a different major in that perspective. I was thinking law and what have you. I was like, what's that? The associates for thing right there, and then go to associates for paralegal, and then go into law school, what have you. I was like, after a while, I was like, nah, that shit's dead. I ain't dealing with that shit. Fuck that shit. So I was failing in that sense, blah blah blah. But then I was in a computer lab periodically. You know what I'm saying? Trying to bring up my scores in school, in the college or whatever again, to bring up, to stay in the college. So I'm in the lab and everything, you know what I'm saying? I'm starting to like go through behind the computer. I'm all behind the computer going through this, that, and the next. I mean, I bumped into somebody also. We interacted, we talked this, that, and the next, but we was going into the computer together and all that good stuff, right? And after a while, we started, you know what I'm saying, like other people started coming in, we started helping other people. And let's say fast forward, even in the last job I had, I was the computer guy type of scenario, or the computer guy type of character. Um, so now the in betweens again. So I started feeling, oh yeah, okay, computer room, the computer itself, it's all good. This is way back when, way back when and shit. I'm like, trying to think, way back and stuff. You heard? Way back. So I was like, all right, for computers, I'm feeling this week. All right, so I'm all, it's all good. Let me change my major. Let me change my major real quick. Let me change my major. So my grades wasn't too tough right there. So technically speaking, to jump into another major because of my grades, I couldn't go in that perspective. And he was gonna try to play me on some like, yo, take some time away from college, or not even play me. I should have jumped on that bandwagon. Take some time away from college and come back. That's like a 6 months probation or what have you if you were one of those failures or failing. You know what I'm saying? One of those characters were failing right there. You feel me? But I was failing, but then I started picking up through the computer. You know what I'm saying? So I was, I threw that out there to whomever, what have you, and they gave me an ultimatum. I'm like, it was like, all right, you could take that, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're gonna give you that 6 months, but the alternative is to go to the other community colleges, which consist of associate's degrees. And if you know what I'm saying, when you graduate from there, you come back over here, da 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 da. CUNY, right? CUNY to CUNY. So I went to BMCC to computer programming. I was going in with like no other in that sense, going in. I was going in. There was something about it in that sense. Oh, I gotta learn programming. All right, so it was boring as hell, but I'm gonna still try. You feel me? That's how that was right there. And it was one of these characters, one of these professors who really put certain people in their place on some real life scenario. On, you know what I'm saying? Like if you're studying programming, there's no bullshitting as you're bullshitting in this class versus when you go to the real world. He wasn't talking to me. He was talking to others around me, technically speaking, who was like kind of sort of cheating off each other. But then again, think about it today. Cheating off each other is like actually what's going on the web right now. Programmers are going through a certain type of program, and they might be stuck. So some of them would jump into Stack Overflow or some other, or even Free Code Camp. Hell yeah, with free how many like I you know what I'm saying, like I'm not a affiliate in that perspective with Free Code Camp. But how many years I keep telling people about Free Code Camp right there. After okay, so let's do a little fast forward. So so I was like, all right, I'm gonna take this take it real serious right there. Got my associates in computer programming. Let me continue my education. Somehow I reached out there to DeVry to continue in that sense. I'm grateful for that too, because there's talk on within like the deeper side of programming within LinkedIn Learning. There's talk about certain types of books that I actually have still from when I was in college at DeVry. We're dealing with UML and all kinds of extra, this, that, and the other. Even as I speak about it, I'm reminiscing within the classroom environment. There was like so technically speaking, they do have something like that. Let me see something within the frameworks technically, where there's like the almost like because like WordPress is like literally WordPress is like a framework in itself, and they were able to create a child theme to override the parent theme. So in that sense, with UMLs, I see that little character, and then there's extension of that character, which was, you know what I'm saying? Like, at least I'm seeing the diagram of it. And unfortunately, it's like going back to college again. There's this couple, married couple, they work together in that sense where the wife is the project manager, and the husband, her husband, he's a programmer. You know what I'm saying? So they both going into the talk within LinkedIn Learning on programming. Right now, it's like object-oriented perspective or what have you. The last one was based on real world in that sense. Giving examples with the shirt and everything like that. The shirt is an object. The color of this shirt is the attribute. And then there's like behaviors or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Various other things. I did some screenshots, and I gotta go over those screenshots again. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I'm like everywhere within the programming world again in that perspective right there. You know what I'm saying? Like going deeper into it. You know what I mean? So even in that perspective, like with classes and all that good stuff right there. I'm saying to myself, okay, so class is a bunch of functions in the class. Okay, just like a function, you gotta call the function. So just like in the class, I'm like, I turn the page, I'm like, wait, the class is being called. Call the class. So that's another part of it right there. I was going through a process with melodically reading the book. How about that? Melodic. You know what I'm saying? Melodically going over the book, at least that portion of it. That book is like one of the main pieces. That's like right in between. You see, like what I shown you in the angle of the book. I shown a different perspective. Let's say this is the very bottom of the book. Now it's from left to right. So the left side is where I'm at, and here's the right side of the book. The remainders, actually, the remainders, more or less, are projects. Is like three main projects right there. Yo, this Python Crash Course book. I didn't in the last video I was showing the cover. I gotta show it on this video too. Python Crash Course. Mind you, it's the second edition. The second edition. The first edition, it was based on like 2 point whatever. This second edition is Python 3. Python 3 plus. So what I know, sorry, Python 3 point whatever. You know what I'm saying? Versus I think the last book was going over the prior update being like Python 2.7 point something, right? And there's slight differences. Like there's some changes, and there are changes. There are changes in that sense. But anyway, so you got to be in the now type of situation, because like technically speaking, before I had the physical book, I was on the PDFs right there. Cop those PDFs right. You know what I'm saying? So cop the PDFs. The first edition, then there was a second edition. So the first edition, I was like, wait, this is 2 points. Fortunately, I was like, this, there's so much detail in there. Of course, they're going to tell you what version of Python. You know what I mean? And somehow, like in a sense, the first time I got the Python book, I think it was through a Git, one of those Git repositories. It was through a Git repository. Somebody has the Python book in addition to the files themselves in PDF format. Sorry, in the actual files like .py or what have you. You know what I'm saying? .py, which is for Python in that sense. The only difference I was like, what hit me in my head real quick was like it's not as easy to put Python into a web development as it is with JavaScript. JavaScript, on the other hand, you could create programs, and you could call the program through the website, through HTML and CSS, or even through HTML by itself. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to have CSS. The CSS is the graphics, right? It makes the web page look sweet. You know what I'm saying? But the HTML itself is that content, the main content right there. And on the top, you know what I'm saying? Like there's the head and there's the body to break it down even further for a website. There's the head and the body within the HTML. Within the head, you could throw in JavaScript into the head and get it called within the rest of the website. But then there was a controversy back in the days with that, where if you're calling the JavaScript first, right? There's a little error where it might not even show the body of the website itself, or even if there's a script inside the body from JavaScript, if there's a script inside the body of HTML, it'll call that script, and then the remainders might not pop up depending on the script and depending on what have you. And there's a fix for that within JavaScript, but technically speaking, I wasn't talking about JavaScript today. But I'm just saying more or less how convenient it is in comparison to Python right now. Not to say that, because Python does have a framework, which is Django. They have Django, right? And it's unfortunate back in the days, I didn't study it like I'm studying it now, because there was a project where somebody had a website, Django based, but I was familiar with WordPress. I couldn't go from WordPress framework to Django framework, although technically speaking, once I know Python in that perspective, as I'm getting to know it a lot more now, and just to jump into Django, that's one of the main projects that's in there. One of the main projects right next to that video game is the web development piece right there. The first thing they put down was the video game, and the last is web development, and then somewhere in the mix, I think it's like this database information, like how to create databases, like, you know what I'm saying, like literally all that content is in a database. You feel me? All that content is in a database. So technically speaking, like Python is used as a as a front end and back end. You know what I'm saying? That's a technical scenario of web development. You know what I'm saying? Web development. Again, with the back end, there's more, let's say security purposes, certain type of things and what have you. And I'm ahead of myself right now, at least with Python. I'm ahead of myself right now, at least with Python. I go on with JavaScript though, as I should as well. You know what I'm saying? Because there's so much going on. There's so much going on in JavaScript. It's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you think it's okay. It's one programming language, but you could put that programming language even in Photoshop. There's programs that there's modules that you could create as a JavaScript file and put it into Photoshop to manipulate whatever, because there's a lot of manipulation in Photoshop. You know what I'm saying? And all that manipulation is based on programming. And I ain't gonna go that. I might not dive that deep as of yet with that perspective. You know what I'm saying? As I went through a introduction to programming with chess. That's a huge program, of course. And back then I was just like, let me just look over the code real quick, just to read it. Just to read it. I couldn't read the whole thing too tough. You know what I'm saying? It was like one of those late nights right there. And I'm going over it like a reading book, like a book. Trying to go over that piece, but I'm like, nah. And I had to let that go after going over it maybe twice a little bit. And go through a different perspective, I guess. Anyway. So I gotta go back. I gotta let this go. Write out this code that's being given, you know what I'm saying, the class of the dog. And I'm sure further down the line, there's the calling of that class. I was about to, you know what I'm saying, I'm turning my head going back and forth. I was about to open up this book and go further into that perspective to see and know for a fact that the next step is calling itself or what have you, you know what I'm saying, based on the name of the dog and the age of the dog, right? All right, once again, this is Kingsley Cross at Kingslow Fitness. Peace. What else? I said peace, and then, there's other things and whatever, you know what I'm saying? Ashe, you feel me? Ashe. Ashe, right? Ashe. You know what I'm saying? If you don't know about that right there, look it up. ASE. With a little dash on top of it or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Ashe. Ashe. You heard? Kingsley Cross at Kingslow Fitness.